Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Bottom of the Smash Mountain, a podcast focused around Melee, hosted by Jesse Wall, a.k.a. Cypher, a.k.a. me. That's me talking. Yes, that's right. I am the host of this whole thing, and I am the one who is trying to upload all the interviews I've ever done on my podcast onto YouTube. I am aware of how much access YouTube may or may not provide. Hopefully a lot for those of you who are more YouTube-focused platform users. Maybe you don't like listening to podcasts on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Podcast Addict or Podbean or many of the other podcasting platforms. There's apparently more than just 3. The point is that if you don't want to listen to a podcast but you want to watch a video of a picture, maybe have it in a separate tab while you continue to browse the internet, now you can do it through YouTube. So hope you continue to listen, and thanks for watching. Here we are, bottom of the Smash Mountain, and today I am joined by someone from the future, sort of. It's more of just being slightly ahead of me on the time scale of Earth, but I'm so happy to be joined by Valerie Wonderland. Thank you so much for joining me.
And thank you very much for having me. I'm very flattered to be here. Kind of nervous, but excited all the same. And let's talk.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you about your TO experiences. That's what I originally heard about when Sean Shuppies, I always get mixed up as to which one he prefers, but Sean, I was able to have on for an interview and afterwards said to me, you should really talk to this person, that person, and he named you, Valerie, as someone who contributed so much to Melee, to tournament organizing, and that is a fascinating subject to me based on the fact that I haven't ever been to a Melee tournament or any gaming tournament of any kind. That I regret that, but hopefully with the coming months, in the coming years, that'll become something that's easier, safer to do. More importantly, I should say, safer to do. So before we get into all of that, though, I think it's always fun to start in the line of the origin story of how Melee came to be a thing in your life. And you can start there or earlier if you like to. You can take it away.
Sure. Actually, as a child, I grew up and I knew Smash was a thing, but it was only ever at like my friends' houses or anything. I grew up with Sony consoles, and then I was with my ex for many years, and he actually introduced me to Smash. We played a lot together, and all the games, but he was mostly interested in PM. So that's just what we played, and that's like what I started on. So it was just me and him playing together, and we watched tournaments as well. I remember the first actual competitive Smash tournament I have ever seen was Smash at Xanadu. And I was into it a little bit, but it reached actually, I started getting annoyed with it at first because I felt like it was just getting to be too much. I was like, this is all he does. I don't get it. Why he is so consumed by this. And then I just started to get it. I'm like, okay, this is actually really hype. And we were playing with his friends, but I got really sick of him just kicking my ass. So I started kicking his ass. And
ooh, what a turnaround.
Yeah, no, he sucked after I started to get good. But anyway, so I started beating him, and then I started beating all of his friends. And I found people to play with on campus where I went to college. Some of us, we got together for fests, and there would be PM and there'd be Melee. And I found them actually at my campus's video game club. And a few weeks later, one guy reached out to me and asked me one guy I knew from the fests reached out to me and said, hey, I'm starting a Melee local at Rest in Peace Classic Game Junkie on High Street near Westchester University. That was our venue, but anyway, he said, I'm starting this Melee weekly. Could you advertise it to the video game club, tell people about it? And I said, yeah, sure, and if there's anything else I can do to help out, I'd love to. He said, well, do you want to help run the tournament? I said, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Jesse, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Until
is that a moment Sorry, is
Go
that a
ahead.
moment where you say to yourself, if I could just go back and maybe clarify a few things with Valerie in that moment, like, by the way, I'm from the future. There's just maybe one or two things you might want to know about this decision you're about to make, kind of casually, right? You might want to think about it a little bit more, maybe.
Oh no no no! I don't regret a single thing. This was January 25th, 2015 was one of the greatest days of my life because of just like how everything just changed from there in my life. So that was the first day of the Westchester Smash Biweekly ever at Classic Game Junkie on South High Street in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and I had never been to a proper Smash tournament or like local anything. I didn't really like know anything beyond like what existed at Xanadu. And there were a couple other guys I was there with who also had not really any like experience running tournaments. So we were just a bunch of dummies like running a tournament. So my first tournament I didn't actually like play at. Like I was running it. My first like proper like experience at anything like competitive Smash related was me running a tournament. But it was great.
That's
I learned
incredible.
yeah. And I loved my team. There were four of us originally, but the one guy who originally asked me to come on and be part of the team, he had other things that he had to do, so he dropped out, and it was just me and my friends Justin and Max, and later another guy, James. All great people, and I loved working with them, and good days. Anyway, so it was a bi-weekly, and it went on from January 25th, 2015 to August 16th, 2016. It's shorter lived than I hoped it would be. I mean, I loved every event, and I miss it a lot, but the store had to close because it just wasn't really doing very well financially. Shoutouts to Dave and Joe, the owners of Classic Game Junkie, later known as Sarnowski and Smart. So, yeah, that's how I got into it. And then, actually, yeah, we'll probably like launch into that part later. So, do you have any questions?
I noticed that you like to keep track of really important dates in your life. When did you start that habit, or is that something you put no thought into?
That's something I put no thought into. So if you tell me your birthday and you ask me a year from now what your birthday is, I'll remember your birthday. I'm for some reason, just like dates, I internalize with no problem.
That's
But
interesting.
even if I weren't that kind of person, I'd probably just remember those dates anyway because they're so important to me.
Right. So not necessarily a first-time conversation between you and me saying, "Oh, my birthday is such and such," and you go, "Okay, that's cool." I mean, if it had slightly more meaning, that would be a much easier to remember number. That's interesting because to me, dates are a little bit fuzzy most of the time, if I'm being honest. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's, and this is probably more of an aside than anything else, but it's almost as if the how our brain works, like for everyone, it's just little things here and there where there's more of a compartment that's a bigger size in order for you to accommodate some sort of personality trait, or not a quirk, because remembering things isn't necessarily that. That's not the right descriptive, but you like to do this or you like that. And the compartment for dates for me is just a little bit smaller than yours, and that's okay. I'm really fascinated by how you remember the really, really important dates in your life. I guess one other thing to sort of ask about that is, do you remember the date of that first Smash at Xanadu that you went to, or did you say that and I might not have heard it?
Oh, I didn't go to Xanadu. Like my ex and I only like watched Xanadu together. I've
Oh,
actually like to this day I've never been to a Xanadu.
oh, okay. It was watching like live stream. Okay, that
Yeah,
makes more sense to me because you said you weren't really getting it, and I was thinking, but weren't you there? And that's all fine and well if you didn't get it, even despite being there. But this was like live streamed on Twitch, right?
yeah. Sorry, maybe I misspoke. We were only watching like on Twitch
That makes
Melee at
sense. That
Xanadu.
makes sense. Yeah, I may have misheard you as well, so that's all good. That's so interesting. Yeah, the other question that I have is, what were some of the, I mean, lessons learned, of course, you're learning because you're first getting started. There's a lot of things to learn when it comes to running even a bi-weekly where you're not expecting to get 1,000 entrants per each tournament. But what was that experience like for you? What were some of the bigger lessons you remember learning from that time?
Just, I'm sorry, let me clarify. From just running the event and just being a TO? What exactly?
Yes. In the January 25th, 2015 to August 16, 2016, the Classic Game Junkie tournament of the bi-weekly tournament over at High Street Chester Universities. Yes. Did I get any of that right?
It was the Westchester Smash bi-weekly. You're good. I didn't expect you to remember all that. I just kind of spit out a lot of like really specific details that you don't even need. So what I learned was, and I learned this as a musician too, like you're just kind of alluded to it earlier, you're just going to make mistakes, right? And you don't always know what you're doing. But if I'm being like really true, like does anybody really ever know what they're doing? We just all have better ideas than other people, right? So you're not going to make like everyone happy, but you are going to make mistakes, or like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have. I can't think of like specific things that like I've done or like decisions that I've made during the time, but just basically you're going to make mistakes, or like you're going to do something that's kind of stupid, and like someone might like tell you later, and don't agonize and like marinate in that kind of thing. Just learn from it and move on, and just make the next tournament better. I remember I can't remember very clearly, but there weren't too many teams entered in doubles. We always ran doubles first at the Westchester Smash bi-weekly. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just run a doubles round robin. Forget how many teams there were, but it was actually a really dumb decision because it took so much time. And I'm like, singles is going to start soon, and I have to push back singles? No, I shouldn't. There are so many people in singles. I can't run this late. But yeah, like, that's an example of like, wow, what a trash idea. And but you learn from that and you move on. And one thing that I keep in mind, like just even now, just with everywhere in life, like if you make a mistake, you are not the mistake. It's like what you do with that mistake that is what's important.
Do you learn the lesson and apply that to a better way in the next opportunity that you have in a similar situation?
Right.
Like that sort of thought process.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it all works and what it's all about. So yeah, and just how to work with my team too, and how we should communicate things and like make decisions. That was something that I learned too. So just simply how to work with and communicate with other people, and not being afraid to ask for help when you need it. Like, oh, I'm really overwhelmed right now. Like, can you jump in and help me, please? Like, come back inside, or like, just can you come over here? Because I was in a bad habit of thinking that like I could do everything, but you can't do everything, and that's kind of what part of it, working with a team is like the reason you have a team is you can't do everything. So I learned that too.
And I think that for myself, I usually default to saying, I'll just push through by myself if I have to get something done. And I'll say that in a group setting. It's a little bit of a flaw of mine, I would have to say. Like hearing how you were able to, through experience and through running the bi-weekly at Westchester University, it's a really big fundamental life lesson to be willing and ready to ask for help from those around you, and specifically from people that you trust and that will actually be helpful to you, not just anyone. But did you think about like learning those lessons in the setting of running a Smash tournament would actually be helpful in other parts of life, or was it all just sort of we're just doing this, and hey, you look back and you realize that was the lesson I learned through Melee, through running a Smash tournament?
I don't think that far ahead. Not always, really. I just try to live in the present. So, what was important to me, running the biweekly, was just let's play video games. Let's be happy and play video games together and make this tournament run and do it the best that we can. If we stumble, we do make every concerted effort not to stumble, of course, but anyway. Make every concerted effort not to stumble, and yeah, that was what was most important to me. And I was learning, of course, along the way, and not necessarily thinking like, oh, well, how will this apply to my future, and applying for jobs and so on. I was just concerned in the moment with, how do I make this as good as possible for all of the people here at this event? I just wanted to make people happy and just like bring them together and just like so we can all share something that we really love. That was the most important thing to me. And so I was learning, not for like, the sake of me thinking about like I said, like how will this apply to like my future? Just like I was thinking about it in terms of like, how can I make this, how can I be better to make this good for all the people who keep coming here every other week?
And the way that you're operating off of that desire, that's sort of like the mission statement of running that biweekly, if you will, I'm sure that came through for everyone who was able to make it after each tournament going, I really had a good time and I'm coming back. Like, I'm sure that came through, which meant that when you were no longer able to be at the place that had to close, what was the next step for you? Did you say, I want to keep running these, I have to find a new way to be able to run another tournament series at another place? What was that next step for you like?
Oh, okay, good question. Well, the team kind of dissolved when Classic Game, or sorry, at the time it was Sarnowski and Smart. When Sarnowski and Smart closed, the streamer went to, he wasn't super into it anymore, even like by the end. He just kind of wanted to be done. And the other guy, the other two guys moved on to this. They just wanted to do other things too. And if we were all in it, like I would have been happy to like look for another venue and try to keep it going. But yeah, the team just dissolved too. And I didn't, on my own, pursue continuing to try to run like a next iteration of like this series. So I guess by then, yeah, it was August 2016. Yeah, I missed it a lot, but I just couldn't see myself like just getting up on my feet by myself or like and just finding a new team and like doing it again. Maybe I would have considered it, but I don't know why, to be honest. But by then I was also like pretty satisfied with I started traveling to nationals on my own. I started traveling to nationals as a volunteer because I thought, well, I mean, this would be a really great way to get more exposure to something that I love and run brackets. Because I mean, one thing I miss nationals so much because if I had to, how do you say? I'm stumbling. I'm sorry. I suck. I love being a pool captain, gotta say, because I love meeting new people. I love watching people's sets and just asking like where they're from, and like we get together and play friendlies later. It's so great. And I started my first national where I did that was Pound 2016, and so I was like,
that was your first national?
Oh, the first national where I volunteered, but the first like big like Smash national that I went to was SmashCon 2015. That was pretty surreal to me. I didn't know that you could volunteer. So then the next one that I decided to go to, which was Pound 2016, I was like, I want to volunteer. I know how to run a bracket okay-ish, so I'm gonna do it. And I kept doing that. I kept going to events where I could do that and volunteering. And I signed up for like every wave because I mean that's just where I thrived, right? Like I like to play, but I'm not a competitor. I love being a pool captain. and it was the Big House 6. Yeah, the Big House 6 where Robotic Fish and Mudkip, maybe you also know him as Chuck Vegas, they noticed that I was volunteering for a lot of waves, and they reached out to me and asked me, like, oh, hey, like, you are really committed to this, you do a good job, do you want to do more? And that was the point when I started working with them as volunteer coordinators. Well, as a volunteer coordinator. So that's when I started, like, with them getting contracted for national events, and we would, get flown out and put up in a hotel and actually, like, organize the volunteer corps for nationals. And yeah, I liked doing that, but I also... Well, I'm sorry?
It all happened seemingly in about the span of a year, it sounded like. Was it that fast, or did it take a little bit more time than that?
It took a little bit of time. I was finishing my last year of university. Yes, I met Fish and Chuck at Big House 6 in October 2016. Yeah, that's right. And by the time Genesis 4 happened, I wasn't, like, actually working with them, but, like, the first event that, like, I was working with them on was Royal Flush in May 2017, and I worked with them throughout the summer at Shine 2017, Smash and Splash, and we didn't get Gommel, but I went to Gommel anyway. And
wow.
Yeah. Oh,
when you said you go to nationals, you are not kidding. You're showing up. You're probably one of the first people in the venue, and you're just going, yeah, good Melee going to be played today. And it sounds like that was something you were, because at these nationals, there's all kinds of, like, they have not, okay, sorry, let me back up. It's not like SmashCon where every single Smash game in the history of ever is going to be played in brackets for doubles and singles, but
right.
There's at least 2 Smash games happening at once, and some of the TOs that I've spoken to in the past for interviews have not been particularly picky about one game over another. They really enjoy running the bracket regardless of what the platform fighter is, regardless of what Smash game it is. Did you find yourself gravitating towards running Melee pools and doing that, or was it just whatever Smash game I get, I will take it, and I'll be the best team, the best captain of the, oh boy, team captain or captain of the pools, or what was it again? Oh no.
Pool captain.
Pool captain. They'll be
Yeah.
the best pool captain in this entire venue.
So, of course, I'm partial to Melee, but wherever there needed to be hands on deck, I just grab the bracket. I don't care. I just I just love helping and being a part of things and making the event run well, because I just want people to be happy and just enjoy video games, this thing that we love and share, right? It's so beautiful. So, but yeah, I have to certainly run Smash 4 pools at nationals. The doubles pool that I ran at Pound 2016 for Smash 4 was a bit chaotic, but boy, what a good time we had. Right? So, yeah, no, I mean, I'm partial to Melee, but no, I just want to help. I don't care what game it is.
Very admirable. If I were in that position, I'd be going, can I get the pools bracket? No. Are you sure about it? No. You mean I have to run the ultimate bracket? Yes. That would probably where I would be in that scenario, which means I would not be a good TO, Valerie. I would probably be pretty bad, because I'd just be going, wow, this set is awesome. Oh, is nobody at that setup doing their set right now for bracket? This is a really cool set that's happening right now. Just give me a second and I'll keep moving the bracket forward. That would be me. Is it hard when there's a hype match happening in the middle of pools, when there's like 30 setups or whatever, and trying to advance pools into like the actual main bracket where something exciting is happening and people are gathering around a setup, and you're going, hey, I still need 2 people at this setup over here to play your match, please? Is that a moment that happens a lot, or is that not something you get caught up in?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me make sure I understand you. So, if in my particular pool that I'm running at a national, if there's a hype set happening, do I try to stop it in the interest of finishing the pool on time?
Stop the exciting match? No, I mean,
No,
if
disband
oh,
like the audience rather.
well, I don't want to say disband the audience. I mean more of you get caught up in the excitement as well, and you sort of forget that you're supposed to be running a pool and you're just spectating purely in that moment and sort of potentially delaying everything else in order to be part of that experience.
I've never run into that problem. There's plenty of time allotted to each wave. I think it's like 2 hours, and excuse me. I think it's 2 hours per wave. So if there's a hype set happening and people are excited about it, it's not really a problem because there's plenty of time. I've never had to rush anybody to finish their pool. I've always had very cooperative people, unless they run away and don't tell me. But for the most part, people are pretty good about that, or like they'll tell me like, oh, just run to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back, or I'm going out to smoke, and like thank you. So, but no, I've never really had any issues trying to finish on time. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm of course being focused and running the pool and finishing in the timeliest fashion possible. But like, if I think that's like part of the exciting thing of running a pool at a national, like you can watch. I mean, stay on task, but you can watch too, and it's kind of fun for like the rest of the people that like you're whose pool like you're running, because like you're engaged too, and like we all share that, right? Like I think it wouldn't be like very fun if like I weren't into it either, right?
Right, and that's what I was more trying to figure out from your own perspective. If you were willing to be caught up in those moments and get to be a spectator for a few moments before, resetting the focus and going, okay, so yes, we do have time to enjoy something cool that's exciting or something that's happening that I want to watch and experience with everybody else here. You don't feel like you can't do that. You felt like you always had time to be able to take those moments if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't share those moments, right? Like that's kind of what's bringing us all together anyway.
Was there a big national that you weren't able to make for some reason during that time where you're going to what sound like pretty much every single one? Like, I'm thinking of Genesis 7 being the last one that you did. So between the first one that was in October of 16.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
October of 16, I'm trying to remember which was the first one that you were doing. If it was Pound 2016, was it? Or was it the other one in the October time of 2016?
Okay, so I was just a volunteer at Pound 2016. I don't think I made it to. I don't remember if I went to other like nationals that summer, but I volunteered at Shine 2016 as well. The very first Shine. Oh my god, I love that tournament. Sorry. I volunteered there too, and I volunteered all day long. I was just so happy. And then I was also a volunteer at Big House 6, and I volunteered at Genesis 4 as well. But yeah, by the time like I was actually like hired as a volunteer coordinator with Chuck and Fish was Royal Flush 2017.
2017, gotcha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So was there a tournament in between Royal Flush and Genesis 7 that you were hoping to make but you weren't able to, or were you able to make pretty much every single one reasonable national in that time frame?
Well, I moved overseas, so there was a lot that I missed. And by that point, I, of course, stopped being a volunteer coordinator because I can't do that when I live on, an ocean away. An ocean, like a country away or something like that. So I missed a lot. And I don't regret, of course, becoming a Globetrotter, but yeah, that's part of why it was such a hard decision to move and do what I do now, because I thought, well, I kind of abandoned all this. So, yeah.
So you had already moved overseas. You came back for Genesis 7. Am I understanding that correctly? Or?
Oh, okay. So, sorry. I moved to Osaka in August 2018. And did I work any tournaments? Yeah, I think like the last tournament I worked was Pound Underground, which was in 2018. Yeah, that's right, I think. So, and prior to that, the only one I remember still being on for was... Yeah, I missed Smash and Smash 4 because my older brother was graduating from boot camp. And yeah, I think like my last one prior to Pound Underground was Genesis 5 that I worked for, if my memory serves me correctly. So yeah, I moved to Osaka in August 2018, and I moved back to America April 2019, and then I moved to South Korea in August 2019, and I returned to the States December 2019. So I was home just in time for like the last gig, which was Genesis 7 in January 2020. Whew, okay.
That is a lot of back and forth, but I'm not sure if I know what is Globetrotter, and is that a job, or is that I don't want to reduce it to the level of like nomad, but like, is that a role, or what is that exactly?
Oh no, it's just like this term that I'm calling myself because I've just moved overseas enough times now where I've traveled, I'm just Globetrotter.
Very cool.
But I don't know
and
if,
you've
like,
done a lot more of that than I have.
Maybe.
I've never been outside of the United States before.
Never been outside of the United States. Well, when things become safe, the number one country I'm going to recommend, of course, is Japan. So,
do you want to talk about Japan a little bit too? I barely, even despite I've watched some anime, so I of course have heard Japanese language and have been exposed to the culture that you see through the lens of watching something like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, for example. But that's hardly compared to actually being over there and living in Japan. What are your favorite experiences, or a memory that you would feel comfortable sharing? Like anything about Japan that you feel comfortable sharing?
My goodness, how much time do you have?
I got enough time.
So this time around has actually been, I'll be honest, very difficult. With COVID just exacerbating, being a fish out of water. And that's kind of what you are when you... It's kind of what you are when you're living in a culture that you're not born into and when, like, you're a minority, right? So I've never felt like... I've never been a minority, right? So, well, except in the context of Smash events where I'm sometimes like the only woman in the room. But I guess like, yeah, like a cultural, like, I'm not saying anything right. Anyway, I guess like a linguistic minority. Let's just like put it that way, and like a cultural minority. So I have a hard time with that here too. And there's an expat group around here, but we don't meet very much due to COVID and so on. But yeah, that's been hard. But I had a pretty healthy conversation with a Japanese lady that I'm friends with in my area, and I don't mean to go out, like, launch into this or anything, like, get like too off topic from Smash and everything, but sometimes I go to my schools, and the whole goal in 2020 was just to come back to Japan, because I knew when I left Korea that I wanted to come back to Japan, and I thought about it every day. And I'm very lucky and very happy to be back here. I'd never thought I was gonna be able to come back here, and excuse me. So I'm back here and I'm very happy, but some days are a lot harder than others, because at the end, like, no matter how much you learn the language and walk the walk, talk the talk, and just do everything you can to try to fit in, at the end of the day, like, you are not Japanese, and you never were, you never will be, and Japanese people don't have the same expectations of you that they have for each other. So, like, that's kind of really frustrating, but at the same time very liberating as well. So, but it's like, to an extent, I kind of do want to fit in. I don't want people to feel like, they have to, like, speak English to me, because I'm there, and so I'm learning Japanese now, of course, and it's kind of foolish to live here and not try to learn Japanese. It just makes your life a lot easier if you are learning the language of the country that you are living in. So, but where was sorry. Oh, okay. So I don't want people to feel like that they have to like respond to me in English, like accommodate me, because I go in and I'm like, oh, I'm in your world, like I'm in your space, like let me assimilate, like let me try, please. Like I want to learn and like, be to an extent like become a part of this too. Like let me play, please, let me play. So so that's hard. And I'm not privy to every little thing that's like cultural, like, etiquette and behavior. And that makes me really self-conscious too. So when I was talking to the lady that I'm friends with around here, she said, you seem like you're marinating in like some kind you seem like you're marinating in like, your own thoughts, and how you're just very apprehensive and anxious about making a mistake. Of course you're going to make a mistake because you did not grow up here, and of course you don't know every little thing. Don't worry about it. Just take it as a learning experience. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is learn Japanese. Show them that you're studying and learning Japanese, and those other things that you aren't sure about and that you're anxious about, well, you'll just learn from just being better at communicating with the people around you. So I think it's a really sobering and important experience to kind of like be that fish out of water, right? So I could go on and on about like, every experience I ever had here. And like, I have learned a lot being this fish out of water once again. But that's what I'm dealing with more recently. And ever since I had that talk with her, I felt a little bit less on edge. Like my job is not like very, very technically demanding. Not as demanding or yeah, maybe not technically, but like, as far as like, like my teaching skills go. Not as demanding as my job in Korea. But I definitely come home at the end of the day just drained because I'm always on and I'm thinking about like, did I make a mistake? Did I say something wrong? Did I come off like, the way I didn't want to come off? Was that wrong? So anyway, so since I talked to her, I've been feeling a little bit less like that, like just like whatever. And kind of let's circle this back to, what I learned, like, running tournaments. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to look like a dummy and you don't know. But if you make a mistake, like you are not the mistake, just learn from the mistake and just go in and be better tomorrow. And another important thing is to just be cheerful and be positive and just be happy. Like show other people like, that positivity and just your happiness, and you will have that effect on other people. Sometimes it's hard, though, when you're the only one in the room who's positive. But some people respond and reciprocate, and that's absolutely worth living for and continuing to be positive for, even if not everybody's receptive to or reciprocating that.
Isn't it an interesting dichotomy to me that I'm hearing you say? Not to oversimplify, so forgive me if you feel that I'm trying to do that. It's not necessarily what I'm trying to say, but when I was asking about different things that you wanted to share about your experience over in Japan in particular, usually that's more or less me wondering like what is exciting or what's fun or what's nice about living over there. And I loved hearing you talk about how it is still a struggle to be in a culture that is not the one you were born into, right? For especially the language barrier, but that you're trying to learn, which is awesome. I might ask you to teach me something in Japanese later if you feel comfortable doing that, but also hearing that it is a struggle for you, and yet you're saying, I still want to be here. I still want to be positive about it, even if it feels very stressful at times, kind of second guessing myself about, did I say this wrong, or was I not communicating what I wanted to in this scenario? It is interesting to me how you seem to be in touch with how you're feeling and all of that, but also trying to remain positive anyway. my question is, what motivates you to try to remain positive? Is it because of the fact that you are in a place that you want to be, or is it because of something else?
So, excuse me. Um, just think about that. Well, I knew all of 2020 that I wanted to come back here because I just kind of felt more connected to, I felt more connected to and like, interested in Japanese culture and the language. I felt really accomplished. When I first came to Osaka, I could only read two of the three writing systems, hiragana and katakana. I had no idea like anything about kanji. And I started to learn because, you can either sink or swim, right? And I felt really accomplished the more I started to learn. I carried a notebook around with me and I just like took notes every day on like stuff that I would hear and see and just like other teachers I would talk to. I started to learn and I was like, wow, this is like such a high. I just like learning because like communication is so powerful. I don't think people understand like how powerful like it really is, and I think you're really special if you're multilingual. And I loved that. I studied French for 9 years, and I just like got that high again of like I'm learning another language. I'm a linguophile, and I became really connected to that. And I loved just being in a place where I would like kind of stumble and learn. I mean, like of course some days are harder than others, but at the end of the day, like I do value the experience. So I walk into a place, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to order at this place. I don't know what anyone's trying to say to me. But the more you like keep trying and like persisting in doing that sort of thing, the more successful you become. You keep hearing the same shit over and over again that's coming out of people's mouths. Like you start to understand what they're saying, and that's really rewarding, right? And I loved being in a place where I just kept learning, and kept growing. And I loved Korea too, but I kind of felt like I wanted to invest the time and effort into Japan. So
That is that.
if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, and I'm not sure. Again, I think I understand a little bit more of why Japan and why going back and also succeeding despite the fact it sounded like the pandemic hit and you were still in the United States. Is that true, or were you able to go over before that happened?
So I was stuck at home I left Korea in December 2019, and once the pandemic started, it was basically thwarting me from coming back to Japan sooner rather than later. And so I was home in the US for all of 2020. I got the job offer in June, and my departure date was delayed until just this past December 2020. And I'm glad I came when I did because I don't think I would have made it at all if I didn't come then. Because no one's coming anytime soon. Borders are still pretty shut tight. So yeah, I was home in all of 2020.
But
Did I answer your question?
Yes, but focusing on trying to get over to there and not necessarily trying to be, I don't think that distracted is a wrong word, but some people have said to me when the pandemic started, you get used to going to tournaments and then you're cut off from that and you go, well, now what? Some people felt okay transitioning to trying to enter or run online tournaments, and some people did not.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of G-Town Tom, who
I was just gonna say, yeah, I remember that conversation.
Is like, yeah, I'm not doing this online stuff. There are other people who are going to do that. That's fine. They can do that. I'm going to take a time out, and that's very valid as well. So for you, despite the fact that you're really wanting to get over to Japan and you keep expecting to leave and you have to keep hearing the delayed word again, and I'm sure that hurt every time, but did you ever say to yourself, well, I could maybe I'll try to do some kind of online bracket or help out somehow, or were you just totally not interested in it at that point because in your mind you're moving on more or less? It's
an interesting question. I didn't feel compelled to run an online tournament, and not because I have anything against online tournaments. I mean they're just what we've got in a during the time of a persisting global pandemic, right? But and I don't know if I was really compelled to even at that point like get into running a local or like say there were not a persisting global pandemic. I don't think I had like that drive to run a local again. I mean, I would have been very happy if there weren't a pandemic to continue to work at national events with the volunteer coordination team that exists now and who I worked with at Genesis 7. Shout outs to you guys, by the way. I love you and you're all very talented and great. But in any case, yeah, no, I didn't really feel that. I mean, I love Melee, but another thing too is like it's hard for me to engage with it unless I'm doing it with somebody. Like I use NetPlay. Like I have like, Slippy and I'll play sometimes. It's really kind of hard to match with people though when you live in rural Japan, actually. Melee is just not as popular here as it is in the US. But in any case. But yeah, I thrive a lot more on just being at the local and being with people and playing like with them and like, having that conversation. It just feels so much more intimate to me. Just building that relationship. But again, nothing against playing online, but that's kind of where I stand on it. It's kind of sucks because like I love Melee, but I'm just not motivated really to play or sometimes even watch unless I'm doing it with somebody.
That you're feeling the very social part of it, and Melee for a long time was primarily more of the social aspect compared to almost any other part of playing it. You had to love the game to show up to events, but then if you got along with everyone, you would just be there for the people just as much as the game, especially for locals. It seems that that's what I hear a lot. The theme is you might come for the game, but you sort of stay for the people sometimes, and especially if you're trying to help things run, like do any of the behind the scenes stuff to sort of make sure that it continues on, or maybe you become the person who runs the whole thing. Maybe you just help with seating, help with commentary, help with setup or teardown. That it's also very much about that socializing aspect. I've heard that theme come through at times in our conversation so far, this morning for you and this evening for me. And I really like hearing that, even if it means that you don't enjoy the version of Melee that you get through the online experience. And it's great that Melee has about as best of an online experience through rollback netcode as is realistically possible for a game played through the internet waves, but
right.
That the thing that you're missing that you would want to be more interested in being a part of is the face-to-face, person-to-person interaction. And you're right. Of course there's a difference between those two things.
You kind of are hitting the nail on the head, Jesse, actually. People might get annoyed with me if I say this, but I really don't think I'm the best TO. I don't think that's where I'm the strongest. That's my strong point in my Melee career. There are many, many, many better TOs out there than me. I'm not this guru. I would have liked to be, and I worked really hard especially when I had my biweekly to do things. And of course I was working hard when I was on that end of event ops and everything. But I think where I perform the best is the people aspect. I mean, I like, being out on the floor and all the logistics and stuff, but I would like to. I can't say now. I'm a teacher overseas. During the time when I was actively doing that, would have loved to learn more and get better at that. But where I performed the best, I think, like, was the social aspect, right? Like, I think more than anything else, I was like a figurehead, or like just not a figurehead, but like a personality in Philadelphia
The
Melee.
Queen of Philadelphia, right?
The Queen, yeah, the Queen of Philadelphia. That comes from a Twitter poll that Johnny Gamble put out a few months ago. Like, who's the king of Philadelphia or something? And one of the options was Rocky Balboa, and like I forget the other two people, but one was me, and I got the most number of votes. And I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm the Queen of Philadelphia now. And
let's go.
I don't even like cheesesteaks. Anyway, Queen of Philadelphia. I felt like I was better at the social aspects. And I remember like one distinct moment where someone who came to the Westchester Biweekly told me, I guess like months later, like way later, he said, one of the main reasons I came back was that you were so friendly. Me and he also said Penny Otis. He's Panties in Philadelphia. Penny, if you're listening to this, hello, I miss you. And anyway, and that really stuck out to me, because I was like, never underestimate your kindness to other people. Because he said to me when he left, he said he left the first local that like the first event of my local that he came to. I said to him like, oh, bye, thanks for coming. And he said, wow, that was really nice. She's really nice. Like, I think like I want to keep going back to a place where people are nice to me, right? And like, my presence matters. So I'm like, wow. So, and the thing that I did the most while at Genesis 7 was like interact with the volunteers and like, work with them, talk to them, like, answer their questions. And it made me really happy. I loved that, because I just like making people happy and comfortable, and like being in a place where they can just enjoy the game in the most optimal way possible and enjoy being together. I don't think there's anything more important in life than your relationships with other people. So I focus on that. That's what's really important to me. And on top of like, making the event run, but yeah.
But it's
I don't think there's
more.
You go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that it sounds to me that what's more important to you, other than the actual skeleton of running a tournament, if you will, you're sort of thinking about what's the spirit behind it. It's not just, oh, wow, this is a really well-run tournament. I'll come back to where things are competent. It's where you feel welcomed and wanted. It's something that I so want to continue to see more of, Valerie, because you and I are obviously aware of how Melee, Smash in general, fighting games, anywhere that you have a collection of people, there's always the chance of there being unwelcoming people, individuals who have their own idea of how things are done, and they see someone different from themselves and they go, oh, does not compute, must be mean, or
yeah, right.
And it takes a deliberate effort, I feel, people who speak to it and show through actions of saying, we're all here because of one thing, in this instance, Melee or a Smash game, these big tournaments or locals. We're all here for that reason. That's already a great thing that we all have in common. So you can just do us all a favor. We can all just try to be welcoming to each other, be nice to each other, enjoy the competition, but not deliberately try to tear down other people, and we can all have a great time with it. And then we move on our separate ways. We all have our own things besides that in life that we like to do. That's all fine and well. We're different. Okay, that's great. But when we're here together, can we try to be a little bit nicer, more welcoming to each other? And if you are the TO doing that, that trickles down, I feel. Like the leadership of any sort of operation, it trickles down to everybody else, I feel like. So if you say to yourself, I'm an underrated TO because maybe the logistics part of it is something that I don't care quite as much about, and maybe that doesn't look as great compared to another TO who is excellent at logistics side, I think it's it's just as important, maybe even more so, that you're concentrating on, I want everybody to feel welcomed and safe in my pools or in my tournament.
Right. Yeah. I think and I mean maybe I'm not in a position to say this because like, I was one of the organizers, but I really do feel that the Westchester Smash Biweekly was so 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 special. And like part of it is because um like the team that I worked with and all the attendees too, like made a point to be friendly with each other and like make it special, and like that's where all the homies were, and all the homies were like really happy to see the other homies, and new people like kept coming back too because it was just such a friendly and positive, energetic culture there. And I was talking to somebody about it a couple of years ago, and he said, I wanted to replicate your tournament. I just loved Westchester so much, but I think it was just the time and the place. There's just something about it, and that was really flattering. I was like, wow, like nobody's ever said that to me before. But that's when I realized like this really was like something so special. And I think about it all the time, but I think it had to end when it did, and it was a good run. It was really a good run. But yeah, I would say that's what makes it like really worth it, and that's what kind of, I mean, other than just my fascination with what a wonderful, perfect but totally messed up game that that Melee is. I was like another reason I was so motivated to just continue being part of it and going to things was I loved the people and meeting people. I was very alone in my freshman year of college because I took music very seriously in high school, and I was going to study music in college, but I decided not to. And for the time in between that and Melee, I wasn't really sure, like, who my posse was, and like where my friend groups and like interests were, because I had given up music. I'm like, well, what do I do now? Like, I'm just a girl with a boyfriend, and I go to school, and I have friends, and so I have some friends, but I didn't have a space with like an interest where I felt like really connected like with that interest and like sharing that interest with people the same way that I had with music in high school. And Melee was that for me. It just totally changed my life, and I want other people to feel that connection socially, like as well, like with their interest. And that's why I loved like being a volunteer coordinator, because I want people to feel like they can contribute and be involved and give back and be a part of people and the things at the event. And right, because it's a really good feeling, and I just want that experience for other people too. One thing I do really miss one thing I do really miss about volunteer coordination, not that I don't love teaching, but yeah, that's how I feel about it.
And now you look back, and it's been a long enough time since you've participated in helping out with a tournament, Genesis 7, when there is a first big national, probably not anytime soon. That would be a little bit much to ask of, especially America, but
yeah,
when that eventually happens again, because I at least have that hope that it will, will there be any part of you that wants to be there, or do you think it'll be so far down the line that you'll go, that was a time in my life, and sadly it's over in some ways, but I'm really happy to be where I am now, if that's still in Osaka or somewhere else in the world?
I don't think I'll ever lose that passion for Melee and just what it's done for me. But if let's in the event that I return to the homeland and the pandemic just ends and there's an event coming up, I would probably just get back in touch with the volunteer coordination team that I was working with at Genesis 7, and just see like what they're up to, because like we were all together contracted, like as a team working together and like dividing and conquering, right? I'd probably just get back in touch with them and see like what we would want to do as our next steps, and reach out to event organizers and see what's up, see if there's a need. So basically, if there's a need for me and I'm wanted there or like whatever, then yeah, of course I would I would dive back in with no hesitation. I really love being a part of that thing, but I don't have to like, be working at the event. Like I would just go anyway and just volunteer for every wave as a pool captain and just, do what I do best. So yeah, no, I don't really like see it as like a thing of the past. And that was like one thing I was scared of when I moved overseas. I thought, oh no, I'm giving up Melee forever, but I don't really feel like that. I'm still have very good relationships with all my Smash friends, and we talk about things and do things like that aren't Smash related at all, but our background is Smash, and we still like talk about it, of course. So, but yeah, I don't think it's a thing of the past. I would dive back into it for sure, even if I'm not like hired staff or anything.
If Ron's still listening to this fantastic interview, then just sit back down. Probably popped off a little bit, probably a little bit. Still in Osaka. That is true. But I'm glad to hear that despite that, you not in a sense of giving it up, but also just moving on to something else, that Melee didn't quite leave you, that Melee's still very near and dear to your heart. It's very wholesome for me to hear that at the very least, and I'm sure for people who know you, they would feel the same as well. So the other question that I would have is just to talk about the game itself, or the players that you would have enjoyed watching. Is there a player that comes to mind, or is there a character that comes to mind? Like, what is it about Melee that itself, the game itself, that would capture your attention being at all these events?
The fact that I can't play it. I'm just like, I'm joking. So, like, what about the game? It's what about the game do I love the most? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so a week or two ago, I rewatched, because it had been a while, I rewatched the Genesis 4 like losers semi set between Mango and Leffen, which is of course always a classic matchup, but the Genesis 4 matchup was probably the classic of classics when it comes to those two competitors playing each other. But like, to me, it captured a lot of things about Melee that I really enjoy watching. It was Genesis. It was the context of Mango doing a loser's run to face Armada yet again in the Genesis rivalry, and pulling out a Game 5 win over Leffen, all that stuff. And you were there, so you at least knew that was happening. I don't know if you were like watching, following along live in the room, or if you were like somehow doing something else like around that venue at the time. But I'm not asking you to recall that particular set or anything. I'm just saying, when I think about watching Melee for myself, because I'm more of a spectator, right, that I think about those kind of moments, and I'm really glad that they happened, because it's not something like, I don't know, an NFL Super Bowl where millions of people have watched it and they'll all kind of have that in common. But I know that there are a group of people out there where you say Mango versus Leffen, Genesis 4, and they'll go, is there something about the game itself? Because you've talked a lot about the social side of it, which is fantastic. I love hearing that as well. But is there something about Melee itself, be it a set, be it a character that you like watching, or a player that you like watching?
All right, well, the first thing I want to say is Peach is absolutely beautiful, and I love her. I love her the most. She's such an impressive, strong lady, and I started with Peach in Melee, and then something terrible happened, and I played Sheik, and then I was like, I'm making a terrible decision. And then I went back to Peach. And maybe that was a terrible decision, but I'm going to defend her until I die. She's so much fun to play. Okay, here's something else, Jesse. I'm not good at video games. I'm terrible at all of them. and I'm terrible at all of them. I love doubles, though. I'm just having fun, right? So, like, I'm very interested in that. It's just so technical. Like, for how, I guess, long I've been involved with Melee now, like I still don't think. Actually, no. I would say that I do understand just how deep it actually goes, and that just continues to fascinate me. I'm not willing to put in the time, and during the beginning of like my Melee career, I was like, I do want to put in the time to be a competitor, not just a TO. But then I was like, nah, I'm a TO. I can't compete. That's
Yeah.
that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I'm fooling myself. And I'm fooling myself and others. So I'm just gonna shut my mouth and, you know, create this event page for the event next week. And then anyway, so I love playing the game, and it is just, you know, technically just very fascinating to me, though my execution is really terrible. But when you do something that's like really cool, it's so satisfying. And like, you know, for someone like me who just can't play the game to save her life, if I do pull out and like do something cool, I'm like, oh my god, like she did it! She said, I get so excited, and it's very exciting watching as well, because, you know, some sets are just nail biters, and you're like, oh, like, like it's who's gonna win, and it's like it's not who you thought was going to win, and seeing like it's so cool, like seeing the decisions that, like, you know, people make, right, and how that unfurls. Every set is unique. Every set is unique. It never gets boring to me. So yeah. Although I prefer watching with people, although I prefer watching with people, I can still, when I do, sit down and I get excited and watch a match by myself. Well, watch a tournament by myself. When I was living in the US, like sometimes I'd get so into it, like I'd like squeal or shriek, and I'm just like watching in my room on my laptop, and my mom or dad will ask me, like, are you okay? Like, is it all good? I'm like, Gatsu just won. Did you see that set last week?
It was incredible.
Yes! I was just like in my apartment all by myself, like, I won! What the fuck? So, it's just, yeah, I was all by myself. I mean, it would have been more exciting with just even one other person, but Gatsu won, and I think Gatsu is, I think, like, he's actually better than, like, his results actually show. I really like him. I'm also a Berserk fan, so that's another reason I like him. Anyway, I don't like Captain Falcon, but, like, I think he's a very good player. Anyway, so so if that answers your question.
It does. Yes, it does. I've been able to it's strange for me, because I feel like, so for me, I feel like that since I haven't been able to experience the socialness of Melee in the context of actually going to a tournament,
Yes.
I've experienced it from a little bit more of a distance, and yet Melee still pulls me back in every time, and that's part of the reason why I decided, you know what, I guess it's podcast time. Well, that and the fact that I can't play Melee as of right now because there's no internet at home. I'm on a Discord call with you on my phone using data and such and such. Yeah. So basically I'm saying, why do I keep enjoying Melee if the socialness part of it, like, because I know just watching YouTube content around Melee and watching streams, at some point somebody waxes amazing poetic about how Melee brings people together. Always fun to hear. And I've heard it enough times that I go, okay, that sounds like really cool. Something that maybe that'll be me too. But I just keep coming back to it and enjoying watching it, despite the fact that I'm not really enjoying it with somebody else in the same room, that it's usually just with chat. Shout outs to Twitch chat. Y'all be toxic sometimes, or maybe a lot, but you keep me company, so I appreciate that. Yeah. And what I'm really excited about when it's safe to do so is going to be experiencing like a local for the first time, and hearing you talk about like the care that you put into it, how you enjoyed putting positive vibes out there, trying to be welcoming. It makes me more excited for that, is what I'm trying to say. And that Melee can be enjoyed through a variety of different ways from different people, but we still have that in common with each other. It's very, very cool, even just to talk for an hour, well, a little over an hour. Well, I mean, a lot over an hour. I really appreciate the time, but I do want to start to wrap up, so I want to give you an opportunity to offer any other thoughts that you wanted to offer while we're here, while we're talking and recording, as well as, if you want to, tell the people where they can find you if they really want to.
Oh, goodness, I don't have anything profound to say. But the last things I can possibly say right now are, other than, of course, staying safe and healthy in these particularly challenging times, are whether you're an attendee or a TO or just like whatever, the best thing that you can do, just like in life and at the events and just like life in general, is to be positive and be welcoming and like compassionate and understanding of other people. And that's other than, just the game itself, what makes us like such a special and like, cohesive unit, like as the Melee community. And I think you can never underestimate the kindness that you show other people. It goes a much longer way than you think, and that's what's kept me, one of the things that's kept me in it, and what keeps us together. United we stand.
I love that. Valerie, thank you so much for joining me on Bottom of the Smash Mountain.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and I enjoyed this. I'm not so nervous anymore. I started to I was feeling very nervous at the beginning, but I started to relax a little bit more. It's just a conversation, right? Another thing. Don't be so hard on yourselves. You are not the mistake. It's what you do with the mistake that is what you do with the mistake that matters. Live and learn.
Is it bad that that sort of reminded me of the Batman quote? It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. Is it bad that I thought of that just now?
Oh, no. I can't say I've seen the Batman films or know too much about Batman. I don't know if that's a bad thing. But
it's a great way to end, because people will go, oh, what do you mean Valerie doesn't know? And they're done talking. Oh, no. But yeah, that's a good spot to oh, you know what? No, that's not fair to you. Why don't you recommend to the people something that they should check out in terms of something to watch, be it a movie or something else?
Something to watch or like something else. Well, first, I'm going to get back to I'm going to answer something that I didn't answer just a few seconds ago. If you are desperate to find me at all, my @ on Twitter is Val_Wonderland. And if I have to recommend just something, like just not related, like a movie, music. If you like math rock, I recommend TOE, just TOE. Great band. I haven't stopped listening to them. That's all.
What's math rock again? Is it with an A or an E?
Math. MATH.
Do they count, or I'm totally confused? It's not prog rock. I know that means progressive rock, but I'm not. I don't know if I've heard that math rock before.
Math rock is the name of a genre, and I think the reason it's called math rock is I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they experiment with different kinds of time signatures a lot.
Okay, so that would be yes. Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with like music much, or like that makes any sense to you, I'm pretty sure that's why. You can search it on Wikipedia and find a more correct answer than the one that I just gave. So.
Yes, and TOE is the band to catch. Apparently, I'll have to be checking that out myself. TOE.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Well, I've played Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, so I know a thing or two about time signatures. If I do say so myself, not really.
See, you know.
I sang in choir too, so I remember a few of those time signatures, but we tried to keep it basic. It was just, high school. No one was super serious about actually singing.
Sure.
But yeah, that is enough. So let's go ahead and Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Bottom of the Smash Mountain. Before you get going, please like the video. Where are you going? You left. Well, for those of you who are still here, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment your favorite part of the interview. Hey, is there a timestamps person that wants to post them? Because for now, the only thing that I'm doing for timestamps is the start of the interview and the end of the interview. You're welcome, YouTube. I couldn't be bothered. At least for now, I couldn't be bothered. So if you also want to listen to this podcast in its entirety, I have exclusive podcast audio that is separate from the audio that I post here onto YouTube. So if that's something that's interesting to you, you can check out Bottom of the Smash Mountain on your favorite podcasting platform. Seriously. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all kinds of podcasts. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.